Ex-prisoners of Reddit, what is your best, or worst, prison story? So, I just got sent down the road and it was my third week in the lockup. Our weekly card game goes nuts as two guys move from talking shit to throwing fists. Things quickly escalate and the guards storm our area. While being locked down, one guy screams at the other, "I'm gonna put a honey bun hit on your ass." I looked at my cellmate and was like, seriously, what kind of shit is this? Turns out you can have another person stomped down for the price of 20 commissary honey buns. That is some retarded gangster shit. Never been to prison, but I was in a county jail for a few days, charges dropped with prejudice. It was a community holding area, meaning group sleeping arrangements with many bunk beds in one room. Being a quiet, invisible type person, I got on pretty well. I befriended a few by teaching them chess and playing them blindfolded and sharing my food. I didn't eat anything for the week or so I was in. Anyway, after day 3 a new guy came into our area. He was a short, buff, black 20-something with a Napoleon complex. I avoided him as much as possible being a scrawny white guy with a hate being spanked complex. I was having some bad allergies at the time and sneezed incessantly. After every single sneeze, even during a series, Napoleon would say bless you and I would respond thank you. It got to the point of being a staccato of a chew bless you thank you. One time I started sneezing and didn't say thank you after every blessing. The kid blew up and charged at me from across the room shouting obscenities and brandishing his fists. My friends from earlier sprang from an adjacent wall and tackled him. They proceeded to pummel him until the guards broke up the fight. Napoleon was sent to isolation. Nobody pressed charges. Rikers Island, jail story. Guards bring white inmate into housing unit and let us know that he's charged with molesting a 6-year-old black kid. One black inmate tells the newly admitted inmate that the kid he molested is his nephew. Makes the terrified white inmate strip naked and tells him to run around the dorm. As he's running around, the other inmates punch, kick, and trip him. He starts crying, but still gets up every time he's tripped and keeps running around. Eventually, he stays on the floor in the fetal position. 3 inmates gather around and kick him until he's inanimate and blood is leaking from his head. After 10 minutes of this, the officers walk in, disperse the crowd, and the bleeding inmate is carried out on a stretcher. Turns out he was mistakenly placed in GP instead of ADSEG. Was in jail for the night and following morning, left with 5 of my cellmates wanting me to prepare their tax returns and 2 guards asking for advice on their 401ks. I didn't know Shawshank Redemption would happen that fast. Edit, to elaborate, I was a bit drunk leaving a bar and decided to piss on a wall. This was a poor decision. But not as poor as mouthing off to the cops that saw me. They put me in jail for the night in a cell with 6 other dudes. In the morning, one of them was trying to write a letter but was having some difficulty spelling some things. I helped him spell some words, he asked me what I was in for and did for a living, and we got to talking. I'm a financial advisor who used to practice as a CPA, and for the next couple hours it was a group personal finance session. When I was released, they told the 2 escorting guards to ask me about investing, and the guards asked me for help with their 401ks. I've never been to state prison, just county jail. First time, 11 months. Second time, 15 months. After being in that hellhole the first time, I was hoping that if I had to serve time again, it would be in prison. State prisons are run way better than county jails. Especially the one I was at. That being said, I still had a lot of experiences in jail. I met people that cared nothing for life and others that were pure geniuses. My first bit, I met this guy who had 1 arm, he lost it in a motorcycle accident, and could draw like no one's business. I commissioned him to do anything I wanted drawn. His skill with 1 arm simply amazed me. I wish I still had the work he did for me. I had him do a portrait of my G/F at the time and was blown away by the preciseness of it. My second time in, I met a guy who had a contracting business. Every day I would meet up with him in his cell and we'd talk money, real money. This was back in early 2008 when the economy really started to take a dive. I became extremely interested in the stock market and the like. This guy knew a lot about it, and all he asked for in return for teaching me about it was to do the daily newspaper crossword puzzle with him. We actually had a lot of fun doing them along with talking about business. I eventually had books about the Fed, the SEC, the IRS, etc. sent to me. Magazines as well. I became obsessed with that world and learned so much about it. I thank that guy to this day for putting me onto something that everyone should know. Even if you don't delve deep into it, you should at least know the basics. You'd be amazed at the entity that the federal government is. Can't remember the exact story, but on a similar thread, some dude posted that his black cellmate punched an AB member and broke his jaw. Then 2 weeks later, 3 huge AB dudes came into their cell, held the guy down, then sawed off his dick with a shank. Pretty terrible stuff. Edit, tried to link the actual post, but it looks like it may be deleted. I may be wrong, so please direct all credit to you /Skyrim joke, but here's the actual post. Okay, story time. Around 2009, I was locked up for some small-time band. It was stupid, I was stupid, but it is what it is and I'm moving on. The prison I was sentenced to had a reputation for being violent, but I had no idea what to expect. For days into my stay, my bunkmate, we'll call him K, had an altercation with one of the members of everyone's favorite white supremacist group, the Aryan Brotherhood. Now this was down in the South, and I don't know what their presence is like up north, but in that joint they basically ran the place. Smuggling and drugs, outside shit, etc. They even had, supposedly, a couple guards on their payroll. Anyway, K is a big dude, 6 feet 6 inches and 250. He's also black and from Compton. Apparently he was visiting some friends who decided to knock over a car dealership for some cash. I know, I didn't feel like such a dumbass after hearing that. Anyway, he was in there awaiting trial and had been for about 2 weeks. For days into my stay we're in the chow line and someone bumped K or K bumped someone. The dude behind K mutters something about niggers being a clumsy type and K just turns around and sucker punches him. Broken jaw for the kid behind him, dental work, wired jaw, the whole works. Anyways, you can probably guess by now this kid, he couldn't have been more than 19, 20, was in the Brotherhood. 3 weeks go by and we're in our cell shooting the shit, trading stories, etc. and 3 of the biggest motherfuckers I've ever seen comes into our cell. In a flash I'm pinned by one of them against the wall and the other 2 pinned down K, yank down his pants and literally begin sawing his fucking dick off with a serrated shank. I will never, ever forget the shriek K made. The brother holding me tells me they're only there for him and not to try anything, like I fucking would. The whole thing took about a minute and a half, they leave and K's in shock. 20 seconds later guards rush in and take K away. I never saw him again or heard from him. From that point on I kept to my fucking self. Was in about 8 months. There was still a stain on the floor from K's dick blood when I left that joint. The worst part is the 2 brothers curb stomped the severed member, it looked like. No, there are no words for that horror. Anyway, reattachment, can they even do that, seemed impossible. And that is the second worst thing I ever saw in prison. TLDR, Aryans will cut your dick off. Edit, people are asking why this is the second worst thing I've ever seen in prison. The worst thing I've ever seen in prison was my brother getting a spiked knuckle to the temple in the mess. He was a lifer and I was only in for 3 months, that time. Never personally been in prison, but I am a medic with several large prisons in the area where I work. Just a few I can remember. A guy's eyeball was destroyed after being hit in the face repeatedly with a slock, padlock inside of a sock. A prisoner chased a football into the concertina wire and looked like he had been through a wood chipper. And my favorite, a couple of dumbasses found a rattlesnake outside in the yard and fooled with it until 2 people were bitten and had to be airlifted from the prison. Fun stuff.